The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast ServiceNow series. Our guest today is Paul Lyons. Paul is the Vice President of Global Alliances and Channels for Sakon. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, JP. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you. I know this one has been a long time coming. We've been chatting for quite some time about getting you on the show, so I'm glad we're finally here.
Yes.
So let's jump straight into it, Paul. Let's start with yourself, as we do with all of our guests. Tell us about you, your background in tech, your journey, where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and how you got to where you are today as the VP of Global Alliances and Channels for Sakon.
So yeah, I started my tech career back in 1994, 1995. I got into the telecommunications space, a bag-carrying salesperson. I was in the long-distance sales area of telecom. It was great, a lot of great training in that role. I was out of college only about 3 years at that point, JP. So it was great. It was a sales role, taught me how to handle objections, taught me how to prospect efficiently, taught me a great sales process, a lot of rigor around their sales process. From there, I moved into more of a senior role from the telecommunications business, which I spent probably the first 4 years in that role. Went to Orange Business Services just after 2000, 2001. That went from a telco sort of job into a much more data networking business, right? So Orange Business Services, one of the largest telcos that's out there globally. I had a sales role there for about 4 years, dealing with larger clients. So I went from sort of a SMB mid-market in my early career into much more of an enterprise sale. So from Orange, I went about 3 years in sales, went into partners and alliances, and probably the best move that I ever did. I can't say that I planned that move. It was just one of opportunity where I was getting a little bit bored with direct sales. And I got into the world of partnerships and channel building. So it was a great opportunity for me. I manage partnerships with some of our application performance partners like Blue Coat and Packeteer and those companies from back in the day that were disruptors in the marketplace. I managed our relationship with Cisco. And then the last 4 or 5 years of my tenure at Orange Business Services, I managed the relationship with ServiceNow. And that's really how I became aware of ServiceNow, what ServiceNow did. This would have been in the 2008, 2009 timeframe, so very early days of ServiceNow, and loved it. I loved what they did. I thought Fred Luddy had developed a very visionary platform where you could automate just about everything, and I took that quite literally. Our team actually utilize ServiceNow in a way that we would compare it to a present-day ITOM, right? So we did things like automating router configurations and automating proxies and firewalls and switches and all the things that we did in our managed services business. Albeit we did it with different tools, JP. ServiceNow was one of those platforms, but was very central to some of our managed offerings. But looking back at it, it was actually very bleeding edge. Like people were not doing these types of things with the ServiceNow platform. And we really launched our services out of necessity. That brought me over to Ikorio for a short stint with Ikorio. Great company, great culture. Loved it. But one of those things happened where you get that once in a lifetime phone call from ServiceNow. I answered that call and made the move. 8 years later, spent my good part of my career with ServiceNow and the Alliances and Channels group. I managed over 40 to 50 different partners, some very large pure play partners, some of our GSI field relationships. I supported Tom Hannigan's group in the commercial sector. Then I supported the East for a lot of their enterprise partners and channels. But just all in all, a great run with ServiceNow over that 8-year period.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a very interesting journey, particularly your early exposure to the platform in your time at Orange, and then how that evolved and shaped what ended up being a completely different direction, which has led you to where you are now today at Sakon. So for the benefit of the audience, tell us all about Sakon, who you are, what you do, mission of the business, and then we'll jump into your role as the VP of Global Alliances and Channels.
So made the move over to Sakon, great company. We're privately held. We're privately funded, so it's all self-funded through our co-founders, Andy Gorno and Amin Ducali. And really a great offering. We're a SaaS platform. And what the company aims to do is to really manage both mobility and what I'll call telecom fixed line assets, all in ServiceNow. The platform itself has been around for years. I think it dates back to 07, 08 timeframe. And we really think it's going to revolutionize sort of the industry and people that are leveraging ServiceNow today. The company itself, we're turning over about 40 million in ARR. We're trying to get to that $50 million mark over the next year to 18 months or so. We're definitely on track to do that. And we do it through partners. So we have a very big indirect channel. Historically, that channel has been AT&T, Verizon, obviously people in that telco space. With myself coming on to Sakon, we've now added to that, and we've added a lot of the ServiceNow pure play partners because, again, with our scoped app sitting on ServiceNow, it only makes sense that we leverage partners that are in and around the architects, the platform owners, the people that are always tasked with getting more value out of the ServiceNow platform. We feel like it's a really good, better together story when you bring Sakon into the mix. And what Sakon has really done is we've figured out a way how to get all of that carrier data, all of the service line data, which is really the challenge in terms of when people say, how do you manage mobile assets? Managing mobile assets is not new. It's been around for years and years. What a lot of these firms have struggled with, JP, is managing the service line. So that is the carrier, international plans, moves, adds, and changes with carriers, different types of carrier contracts, people that have access to some plans and others, plan changes, all of those moving parts. You can imagine a global enterprise that may have 5, 10, in some cases 50 or 20 different global carriers. Managing all of that information, forgetting about ServiceNow for a moment, just managing all of that on your own is a very daunting task. And when people have been asked to put that in ServiceNow, it's almost been looked at as something that is almost impossible to do. And Sakon has really figured out that riddle. So yeah, that's what we do at Sakon. Excited to be part of that team.
Thank you for that, Paul. And I'm happy to hear you share not just the recent developments since you joining and the collaboration with the other partners, but the app that already exists. And it's really put Sakon in a position where you guys are one of the go-to organizations for anything within the telco space. Can you talk to us about the platform and how it breaks down into the device, telecom, and then Sakon Mobile?
So the Sakon device platform manages all of the mobile devices. That's basically what we're calling version 1, which is out in the store today. V2 is really going to be a subsegment, a secondary scoped app that will manage all of the fixed line. So fixed line meaning wide area networks, local area networks, things are physically connecting one office to another. We think, JP, that's going to be a complete game changer. When that gets launched late Q4, early Q1 of next year. And really, it's the device platform in the background that orchestrates and controls all of it, whether the customer is electing to utilize the mobility, the mobile asset management part of what we do, or our Gen 2, which is coming, which is going to be the automation of fixed line and telco. Yeah, it's very powerful. You know, as a smaller organization, it's actually amazing when you look at our client roster, JP, of just large Fortune 2000s. You can see why they've gone with us, where it's a single platform, which is a highlight point to note. We are a single platform. We don't have bolt-ons. Some of our competitors have bolted on different technologies in the background, which can provide difficulties around SLA management and things of that nature. So we're a single platform, very similar to ServiceNow. It's a very clean architecture, and it really allows us to do the things that we do and how we can innovate so quickly.
Paul, I want to spend a little bit of time understanding your role in a bit more detail. Obviously, the skill set and experience that you bring to Sakon is obvious from your time both in the telco space and your role at ServiceNow. Can you walk us through some of the main responsibilities that you have in your current position? Maybe a typical customer journey from first introduction to signing up, and then how that interacts with the broader team once you're bringing customers through the journey?
I learned a long time ago, JP, with this sort of partner, game, if you will, that there really has to be three ingredients to make a good partnership, any partnership for that matter, not just in our space. But one, there has to be value that Sakon brings to the partnering entity, right? So let's just say in my case, it was a lot of the ServiceNow partners. Two, there has to be value back from that partner to Sakon. And that value may be one of expertise in a particular area. It may be something that they do that is different and will give us a different angle, which we haven't considered or nor can we do. And then the third leg of that stool always has to be, what is the value proposition to the end client? Does it make sense when we tell the story between Sakon, the partner, and then we pitch that to the customer? Is there a very obvious customer value statement? So you have to have the right recipe. So with that being said, like anything else in life, customers or partners, you're going to kiss a lot of frogs, right? There are going to be a lot of folks that either want to partner or we want to partner, and just for whatever reason, it's just not a good fit. Sometimes, quite frankly, that can come down to sales structure. That can come down to just cultural differences where they may run their business in a very different fashion, so it doesn't make sense to partner. But when you do find the right partners that hit the key elements, those three sort of pillars of the recipe, that's when the magic happens. If you look at the ServiceNow ecosystem, and you were to just look at the revenue they derive from their partners, they essentially get 80 to 90% of their revenue from really 15 to 20% of their partners, right? So with over 1,000 global partners, it really boils itself down to less than 100 partners or so are really deriving most of that revenue. I would even argue that it's probably even less than that, where it's even sub 100 partners are delivering the majority of the revenue. So same with us at Sakon. So my job is to really find out what's a good fit, who's a good fit, and why is that when we pitch it to the end customer. So my mission has really been focused on the ServiceNow ecosystem. Today, we currently have 8 partners within the ecosystem, all of various sizes, but they all have that same recipe that I alluded to earlier.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
When we think about the broader team, I want to bring it back to what you said. Look, Sakon's quite unique that you don't have bolt-ons on the back end. This is end-to-end. You've built something truly unique. Take us behind the scenes of what that looks like. If we were to walk into Sakon today as a new employee, what environment are we entering from a size, the departments? What's the environment and culture like? Share with us what's made Sakon so successful from a people standpoint.
The first is from a people standpoint, innovation. When I was at Orange, that was the thing I always keyed in on, was they were always innovating. It wasn't like they'd have an innovation run and then pause for a year and a half and then nothing and then start. It was always innovating things. ServiceNow, by the way, does the same thing. At Sakon, we are also innovating all the time. So when I got to Sakon, the first thing that I realized, JP, is it's really a feat of engineering in terms of how we manage all of that carrier data on the back end. We have roughly 600 or so folks in India that manage that environment. So everything from architecture, operations, support, all of that is carried out through our team over in India. Like I said, roughly 600 to 650 people. We then have roughly 200 people here in the United States. So firm-wide, we're about 850 people. We have a very strong solutions consulting and product team headed up by Michelle Wheeler. Her solutions consulting team is world-class. Love to work with them. I find that as someone that's been here for a year at Sakon, working with the team, the solution consulting team under Michelle, working with her from a product release standpoint, what's coming next and why has been great. And I would say that working at a smaller organization, I'm very close to the direction of the company. What is the next move? What are the next big things that we're going to be developing? I had mentioned the sort of Gen 2 that's coming out later this year, beginning of next year. Just to be part of that, number one, is very exciting. But number two, you're allowed to provide input and feedback and things of that nature. So having that small environment where you've got a fairly large engineering group, JP. It's great that I can be part of that. That's not something that I was part of at ServiceNow, just because when I joined, that sort of rocket ship was well on its way. We also, from a marketing perspective, I will tell you, we actually outsourced that to a company called Forest. Is actually a key marketing vendor of ServiceNow. The team at ServiceNow actually referred them to us, and probably the best referral we've ever had. They do everything centric to ServiceNow, content builds, look and feels, the way that they manage social media, campaigns, things of that nature. We've all outsourced that, which I think was a very smart move on our part to Forest Company, which helps us from there. From a sales perspective, half a dozen folks in the United States, each and every salesperson, I should say, for the most part, has both a direct book of business and leverages an indirect channel, working with people like myself. I also have a direct report who's excellent, former ServiceNow employee. She was in the ADR SDR role, so she works alongside me to help develop the relationships that we've built with ServiceNow partners and others. So I hope that's just a quick look into Sakon. Obviously, there's more people that make it all work, but those are some of the key departmental groups within Sakon that sort of make the magic happen.
Yeah, that was great. That was exactly what I was looking for. And the reason why I asked it is because of the many conversations you and I have had over the months and years about the growth, the trajectory that Sakon is on, and even in your time there, how much it's grown and evolved, which I think is a great way for us to segue into the next part of the conversation. As we record this, it's post-knowledge, obviously tremendous excitement that week in Vegas. You and I were speaking about the opportunities that are coming directly off the back of it. But when you look specifically at Sakon and the near-term roadmap, you mentioned earlier ServiceNow being a rocket ship. You guys are a bit of a rocket ship in your own right. So share with us what the near-term roadmap looks like. When you look at the next 12 to 24 months, what are you most excited about for the next phase of growth at Sakon?
For us, in the short term, it's all about brand. There's always that statement in business. You don't want to be the best kept secret, right? That's not good for growth, as good as it sounds to say. And that's essentially what we've done over time. We were this quiet company making some very big moves with big customers. But now that we're in the ServiceNow realm, JP, it's all about brand, getting the brand out there, getting the brand associated with ServiceNow because we do so much work with ServiceNow. The ServiceNow, by the way, is incidentally a customer of ours. So I will tell you that myself, my COO, and our co-founder, Andy Gorno, are always talking about the brand. If I just look at the time that we've spent over the last even 6 months, JP, it's really getting that brand out there. It's getting brand awareness with ServiceNow sellers, brand awareness with the partner ecosystem, brand awareness with the community at large. So I'd say for the next 6 to 12 months, we'll continue down that brand path. In parallel to that track, it's all about growth, right? So really leveraging the partners that I've signed on to be part of our partner program to really help us hit our goals, and for them, quite frankly, to hit their services goals, is really going to be the focus. I can tell you that our program itself really facilitates partners to go out and leverage the relationships they already have on the ServiceNow ecosystem. So really good to see some of the top partners and players, and you guys know who they are, really starting to bring leads, develop services leads for themselves, and develop software sales leads for Sakon. I'd say the parallel track, to answer to your question, is to really develop the channel, get that force multiplier going, get our sales people even more comfortable with the channel motion, get the ServiceNow partners comfortable with that channel motion. And really, I think when those roads begin to intersect this time next year, we should be really humming in terms of where we are with the channel, where we are with growth, where we are with new logos, revenue attainment, and things of that nature. I'd say would be the core focus over the next 12 to 18 months.
And with that core focus over the next 12 to 18 months, the growth is going to have an impact on the people side of things, as it often does. I know you and I were talking about it briefly last week. When you look at the plans that you have, all very exciting, one of the biggest challenges for any partner, for any organization to achieve those types of plans is the talent and the workforce needed. So you're obviously a senior leader in the business. You've got a proven track record of building and scaling in any area that you've worked in. And I know you play a pivotal role in Sakon's strategic direction from a growth standpoint. So I want to get your take on the people side of things. When you're speaking to people about Sakon, particularly candidates who you think could add value to the org, what is it that you tell them about Sakon, its mission, its environment, its culture, its workplace, that gets people, particularly in the ServiceNow world, excited to join Sakon over some of the other great companies also trying to hire?
So for me, the interaction of executive leadership and all of my colleagues and executives, just that camaraderie is huge. Culturally, I love it too, because there is a lot of collaboration, a lot of knowledge sharing, innovation sharing. We really try to get people together when we launch things. So I would say it's a culture that facilitates conversations with people coming into Sakon that they may not be a part of in other organizations, because those organizations are just bigger, they're more matrix, they're just larger. You're not in those sort of conversations. So really, it's entrepreneurial. Entrepreneurial is how I would categorize it. Which is to say that when we talk about things like innovation, we talk about pivoting into a more ServiceNow focused sales direction. I think the conversations that new employees are involved in will be very refreshing to them, where they're not just tasked with this very basic one-dimensional role, doing a handful of things on a day-to-day basis. I think from what I can tell you, just as someone that's joined Sakon, we have the ability to get into much more strategic discussions. And I'd say for younger people joining the organization, it rings even more true, where maybe they haven't had the opportunity to speak with a co-founder or a CEO or someone that's a very experienced senior level person. I can tell you that a good example, the person that reports to me, Michaela Payon, has had the opportunity to meet with our CEO, to meet with our co-founder, to meet with our leadership team as well. From that perspective, I think Sakon offers a lot for people that, both veterans in the ecosystem and then newer people in the ServiceNow ecosystem, to really enjoy a company that values innovation, values a work-life balance, is another thing I would say, which folks love, and really just being a part of a smaller organization where I think they're sort of getting back to the basics of work-life balance and the basics of being happy and content and excited and enthusiastic about the work that you're going to do, and waking up every day and knowing that you can really make a difference at a company and you're not just another cog in the wheel. So that's how I would describe Sakon and the opportunities. I think not even down the line, but I think immediate opportunities may be around solutions consulting, where we need ServiceNow experience. Sales, direct sales, where it'd be great to have people that maybe have a ServiceNow background in our direct sales organization. Folks that have very good project management and implementation experience around ServiceNow, I think are going to be some of the roles that we'll be considering, over the next 12 to 18 months.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us. I know I said in the introduction, we've been flirting with doing this for quite some time, so I'm glad we finally got it done, and it didn't disappoint. Great insight into first of all, your own background and your path to ServiceNow, and now your role with Sakon, and a tremendous look behind the scenes of Sakon. You guys are really a trendsetter and a leader in the space that you're in, and from all conversations that you and I have been having recently and what you've shared with us today, it's clear that it's going to continue. You guys are going to continue to be leaders in the space that you're in, more growth and lots of exciting stuff to watch for. So appreciate you sharing what's going on. Very excited to see what you guys can accomplish in the months and years to come. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Sakon the very best of luck, and look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
Thanks a lot, JP. This was great. Thanks for the opportunity. And like you said, I think you're going to be hearing a lot more from Sakon over the coming months for sure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.